Quick share. Okay.
Sorry for the interruption, and we are back now.
Yeah, all good. All right, let's try that again. Yes, is it? Can you see that?
Yes, yes, no.
Cool. Okay, so to summarize, yeah, I come from graphic design and typography. I went into research. While doing the research on sign language, I started studying ways to represent motion of hands in 3 dimensions graphically. And that's how I got in contact with programming and technology and installation art, because the system we designed to represent sign language we discovered could be used to do 3D calligraphy. And after that, I went into, I did different projects that were also going into the representation of like graphical representation of motion, which culminated in a project I did with the Graffiti Research Lab, which was more of a like a spray can graffiti simulation. So yeah, this was the 3D mouse that we built for initially for sign language, but then used for festivals. Here it was at the White Night in Brighton. This was another calligraphic system that I built. It was processing. And then more recently, like more recent projects, I was doing some a project where well, it was already 2 years ago. For 9 months, I was posting a different animation made in processing every day, and those are just a very small selection of those. And yeah, this is the 3D representation of the system to represent sign language with photography, which led into the digital version that you saw before. That was something else that I did with PlayStation Move. And yeah, the project with the Graffiti Research Lab, where we had a tracking system using infrared LEDs and simulation of paint, like of spray can painting. And that's a fairly different project, which I did in 2013, I think, called Price Tag, which is an artwork that displays its own price, calculated based on fluctuations on the art market, as well as social media of well, my own reputation on social media. And it's using this really nice mechanical displays that I found online. They're pretty difficult to find, and they're also very difficult to control, but they have this lovely sound. I really like them. And
so, Raphaël,
yes?
You mean this counter like counts the Twitter maybe post or something like this?
Sorry, I can't hear you very well. Can you get closer to the mic?
I mean this counter,
yes.
like counts the posts on Twitter or something like this?
Not literally. It's a combination. So it's an index. So like stock market index is something that combines data from different companies into one number. So in the case of the art market, you have different art companies like Sotheby's or ArtNet that are listed on the stock market, and you take all their values and you average them and you get a number, and that's your index. And so I created my own index, but I put into the index, I added some social media numbers.
I see. But you mean this? Those numbers are for how much sellings those art companies like selling paintings or selling projects maybe?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch the question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what's the counter like for selling and art companies, like what kind of things they are selling.
So it's based on the value of these different companies, as well as, well, I use social media as a proxy for the value of, like, for my own value, let's say, as an artist. And so that is also, you know, a multiplier that enters in the calculation.
Okay.
All right. So, and that's part of a project that I did while I was at Art+Com, which is a company in Berlin doing media installations. And this was a very interesting project. It was based on an older project by Joachim Tauter, the founder of Art+Com, who's a pioneer of media art, and he got in 1991 the Ars Electronica Prize for a piece called Die Viewer, or Zerseher in German, which was a piece where you would be looking at a painting. Actually, I should be able to show you that. So, yeah, wrong, yeah. So this is the guy, and I don't can't find it. Yeah, so it was a piece that would get destroyed when you looked at it. So that was the original piece that you can see here, and he was asked to rebuild it, but it was really difficult to rebuild it as it was, because I mean this is how it looked at the time. So it was this giant like, this was the display, and this was like the PC running just the visuals. So it was a crazy machine. This was just like display and the eye tracker, I think, and we had the eye tracker that we used in our version in 2013 was just the size of a pencil case. So the technology changed a lot, and that's a big question in media art, is the conservation. It's very difficult to keep an art piece as it is. And actually, the funny thing is, with the version that we did in 2013, well, we got the same exact problem, which is that Joachim already asked me twice if we could rebuild it for presenting it in another place, and we already can't, because the way that we built it, it was quite fragile, and so we couldn't really do it again as it was. So this is the piece, how it looked. It was this kind of monolith, and when you sat in front of it, it would take a picture of your eye. I don't know how well you can see the video. Is that okay? Yes or no?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so you would see your own eye get zoomed in, and yeah, sorry for the guy on the video. And yeah, as you look at it, instead of destroying a painting, you would be slowly destroying your own eye. And so there's this sort of reflection on the gaze, or sort of maybe an inner gaze. And yeah, it's a bit creepy as well. Actually, we had a lady run out of the piece, because I mean, she didn't even get to the moment when the eye starts wobbling around, because she was already freaked out when that part happened. So just this, she saw this and she ran away. So yeah, it's interesting how people respond to what you do sometimes. I really didn't expect that. Yeah, but it was a really interesting piece to make, and that was really a fun one. Definitely the most fun I had working on something at Art+com, I think, except for innovation lab that I run. And yeah, I'm gonna skip directly to Noi. Yes.
For the extended version, the upgraded one that you made, that you show us, it's not just like you try to rebuild yourself, not rebuilding a painting like in the previous version, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the point wasn't really to try to copy the piece as it was. At least that's not what Joachim wanted. We discussed it, and I mean, it could have been possible to make a copy of the original, and we could have made it look quite close to the real thing. But that's not what the artist wanted. What he wanted was, you know, to update it for the 21st century. Let's say the original piece, the Terzier, was about interaction, because in 1991, interactive art was something quite new still for people, and and so it was a sort of reflection on the status of interaction and the role of the spectator's gaze. But in 2013 or 2014, this felt a bit, you know, old-fashioned, or already like very, it had been explored already quite a lot. So so he wanted to make something new and to say something different this time around, to make it a bit more contemporary. And so it's more about, you know, like maybe surveillance, or maybe, you know, introspection, mindfulness. I don't know. It's kind of it's kind of a piece that doesn't really spell out what it's saying, but I feel like it was quite powerful. I had a friend who actually wasn't yet a friend when she went to see the piece, which I met her at the exhibition, and she told me later on, not on the day, but like we met again a few months later, and she told me like that the piece made her be less afraid of death. And I was like, well, I have, like, what can you say about this? Like, I don't feel like that's something that we put inside of the piece. It's because you're looking at yourself, and, you know, you're thinking about how things decay, maybe.
But it's more, I think it is like you are trying to say like each one like to interact with himself. Like it's more about self-reflection about himself differently.
I think everybody sees something different in it, because they're looking at themselves, and in a way that you're not used to, and thinking about how the way that you look at yourself influences your image. And yeah, I guess in the end, it's like a Rorschach test. Everybody is going to see something different in it, which usually is not something that I'm very comfortable with in an artwork. But since it wasn't literally my artwork, but something I was doing for someone else, I sort of let go of, you know, the desire to state something explicitly. And it was a big learning for me, like, you know, how ambiguity can be a good thing, and if you balance it well, then it can speak to people on so many different levels, and it has a sort of richness to it. I mean, I don't mean to brag. It is what it is, but I felt like people were responding in interesting ways to it. You know, between somebody who thinks that it makes her less afraid of death and somebody who just runs out of the room, there's a wide range of reactions to it. So that must mean something.
Yeah, it's all about artworks. Like everyone have a different feedback or different reactions.
Yeah, okay, it had quite a strong impact on people, at least. So, yeah, I mean, that was a quite broad and a bit chaotic overview of the things I've done in the last 10, 15 years, maybe. And now, because you asked me also to come to talk about what I do at NEEEU, I'm going to get into this. So for the last 2 years, I've been involved with two friends of mine into like the creation of a design studio in Berlin, and we call NEEEU. So, or you can say neu if you're a German speaking person. But yeah, that's our studio, and we're focusing on on using design to help companies or partners, people we work with, cultural institutions also a lot, to find how to use emerging technologies to their advantage. And that means researching what people want or what is missing, what the technology is able to do, and try to match these things together to design products or services or experiences that are that well, good for the world, I would say, as much as we can, and are delightful for people to use or to experience. Um, so we're multidisciplinary design studio. I mean, that's now something quite common to say, but it's true. We have designers, but we also have developers, and we work with people who are as much as possible hybrid profiles. So designers who know how to code, or programmers who have an experience of art or design, and that's important for us that it doesn't happen in a silo. Because for communication, it's very important that we can speak the same language, so to say. And yeah, we use upcoming technologies to try to address problems in the real world for like real people. And I'm going to show a lot of technological things by nature, but don't be fooled. We really want to think of technology as a means to an end rather than a means in itself. We all, you know, we all really love technology, but it's important to remember that yeah, in the end, you're not making technology because it's technology. You're using technology because people are living their lives, and they want to live, they want to love, they want to have fun and interact with other people, they want to feed their family, they want to be healthy, and those are the things that matter, not the technology. That being said, we also observing that there are some trends in technology that are interesting and worrying at some levels. We're entering what I would call the era of contextually aware computing, which means technology that more understands and reacts to you, to where you are, to what you do, to what your desire is, and your values, and your relationships are, and they adapt and they understand and they interpret us and what we do. And that means that to design for these technologies, we need to think of them in a different way than we used to. It's not just machines, or it's not just a website anymore. It becomes more like a symbiote, almost like something that is attached to you and that sort of lives with you. It's more like an animal in a way, or some kind of parasite than it is a tool, like, I don't know, a book. It doesn't have this static quality anymore. And this is part of this trend of spatial transformation, which is that technology is going into more merging with the space around us, rather than being located in a screen. I mean, I'm talking to you through a screen, but at the same time, we have more and more of these interfaces like, you know, Alexa or Siri, or I don't remember what the Google one is, Assistant. Yeah, so this is one example, but also we have cities that are becoming able to watch and look where people are walking and what cars are doing, and adapt the traffic conditions in real time based on computer vision algorithms that are tracking the traffic. So all of this is sort of hidden technology that is all around you and that responds to you. And designing for that means something very different than designing an app for a smartphone. And this is going to become more and more true as we go towards mixed reality, like augmented reality, that is still in the phone right now, but very soon it's going to be everywhere you look. Every time you open your eyes, there's going to be an overlay that is there and that is that contains information and enables you to interact with the world around you in ways that merge the digital and the physical. And that if that's still abstract at this stage, well, don't worry. So I'm going to skip a little bit on those to get to the project. This is more like a sales pitch. But yeah, so I told you that we like to see technology as more like a means to an end, and that also goes into the way that we choose to prototype. When we do augmented reality, we like to prototype it not necessarily directly using code or even going into Photoshop, but we try to have as much as possible this analog approach. So in this case, we created these overlays that are like just a piece of acrylic in the shape of a phone, and you can draw on it with whiteboard markers and try things out. And that's a good way to avoid getting into technological mindset when you should be in a problem solving and creative mindset. And then once we have an idea, then we go further and try a prototype, like digital prototype. This is one that we made at the Natural History Museum in Berlin. And it's a real app, but it's not really it's not real content. That was just to test the interaction. So here you point your phone at some exhibit, and you can just click on it and get some extra information. Is everybody still there? Because since I can't see you and I can't hear you, I don't even know if you still hear me. Yes?
Hey, we can hear you. Yes, yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. So I'm going on. So yeah, we do a lot of testing. We test with users. That's really important in the process that we have. Yes?
Did somebody have a question, Nahla?
How does it push the information on the mobile in the museum? How do you push the information on the mobile in the museum? Is it an application?
Yes, so that's a good question. So in this particular prototype, there is no information. It's purely fake content. But we did. I will show later a project where we did do that for real for that same museum. And in that case, yes, we are using an app. Augmented reality on the phone right now, you have to use an app. It's not going to be the case forever. There is already something called Web AR or Web XR, which enables to have these kind of experiences on a browser. So if you're in Safari or in Chrome, you'll be able to have that. But for now it's mostly in an application. So we're using Unity, which is a game engine, but you can also build any kind of apps in there, and that's what we mostly use for every app that we build. Yeah. So as I was saying, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay. Cool.
Awesome. So yeah. So as I was saying, when we do these prototypes, what's very important for us is also that we try it with people. And the reason for this, and it's particularly important with emerging technologies, is that I think you in the room, you're probably familiar with technology if you're coming to Creative Code meetups. at least a little bit, but not everybody is, and it's easy to make assumptions or think that everybody thinks like you or is familiar with the same things that you are or wants the same things that you do. And well, I mean, if you spend any time with other humans, that's not the case. We can be very surprised by what other people want or other people know. And for that reason, it's very important that we try things with people, especially people who are the target audience. And that's what we do a lot of in these projects. We try to go, when we work with museums, for example, we try to go to museums to the museum we're working with, and do interviews with visitors, random people, and try our prototypes with them and get some feedback, because we can't put ourselves in the shoes of everybody, and we don't. I mean, I would love to have the empathy to be able to put myself in the head of a 95-year-old woman or a 12-year-old schoolboy, but you can't. And so we have to ask these people and listen to their stories and listen to what they want, and that's how we make better products and services in the end. So that's an example of this process. So that was a really fun project that we did for the painting gallery in Berlin. The Gemäldegalerie is called in German. It's like the National Gallery, and they have paintings from the Renaissance and the Middle Ages. So it's a very traditional environment, is what I'm trying to say. So they like traditional art, and when we went there and we met with the curators, the first thing that, I mean, before they even said hi or anything, there's this one guy, curator for Spanish and Italian Renaissance art. He entered the room and he said, "We don't like technology in our museum." And then that was it. And everybody went very silent for a minute. And there was this awkward moment. And yeah, I mean, where do you go from there? So what we try to do is to really have a conversation with people. And in this particular case, what we did is we took some of the people from the museum and brought them into the forest where we had the workshop. And what the reason behind this, besides that it's just fun to go into the forest, is that we wanted to get them out of their environment where they normally work and what they're familiar with. And the sort of the idea behind our head was, what if we get these people in an environment where they will feel a little uncomfortable, and they won't really know why they're here and what this is about. And in this way, they can empathize with a visitor in a museum who doesn't necessarily, come all the time, and they come here and they don't necessarily feel like it's their place. How do you create this feeling in people who, if you leave them in this environment where they work every day, and for them it's a very natural environment, it's very hard to get them to step into this mindset. So that's why we took them out of their environment and brought them to another place, and that was extremely successful. We had a great working relationship with them after that. And I think this workshop, it played a big role in having the project work as well as it did, simply because we could get into this sort of letting go mindset. I mean, I'm not even showing you the whole thing, but we had a Colombian shaman there, and we did some kind of mindful meditation when we started. So it was all very a bit cheesy, but at the same time, very interesting, and it really pushed the boundaries of their comfort zone. And this is what we got in the end. I mean, of course, I'm skipping weeks and weeks of back and forth with the curators discussing about the content. But yeah, what we did was a sort of media guide with interactive elements. And on the left, you can see we gave the visitor the ability to close this this triptych. It's a a typical like Christian icon that has art on the inside and on the outside, and normally it stays closed until there is a ceremony, and then you open it. But in the museum, it's left open, and you cannot really see the outside of it. And so we made we created this AR system where you can close and open this triptych. And on the right, you have we got a really good high definition X-ray image of that painting. And so we made it possible to overlay the X-ray on top of the real painting. And so you could look around and see some details that you wouldn't see otherwise. I think that's probably the most important thing to keep in mind when working with augmented reality in a museum, actually. And that was a big fear from the curators, that when you put digital inside of a museum, that you are hiding the art, or you are distracting the visitors from the artwork. And of course, that's not what you want. But what you can do, and what I think is interesting, is if you help people see something that they wouldn't see otherwise, like maybe some details that have been changed in the painting, like on the right, if you looked at with the X-ray, you would be able to see that the shelves on the painting, they were changed by the painter. They used to be in another direction, and that's why this book here is in the angle that it is, because the shelf used to be at an angle, not horizontal. It was like the one on the right. And that's something you wouldn't see. But but if you see the X-ray and then you look at the painting again, then you might be able to see these little traces. And I think what we want to have is that people look at the real thing, then they look at the digital overlay, and then they put the tablet away and they look again at the painting, and with some new information, with some fresh eyes. And that's really what we observed, is that people would do that. Like, they would look at the painting, they would see, then they would look with the tablet, with the AR, and then they would put the tablet down, and they would, be more interested in looking with their eyes at the real thing, because now they have some extra knowledge, or they can interpret the piece better. And I think that was the ideal result. I don't know if, no, is this a video? No. Do you have any questions about this one? Hello?
Yes.
No, we don't.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's move on. So this one, this is a really cool one that was just presented, actually. Let me show you. Where can I show that? Probably there. So this was a piece that we did in collaboration with the University of Helsinki in Finland. And in 2016, I think there was, 2017, there was an open letter by a group of Finnish scientists, which was warning that the policy about forestry in Finland was putting the environment at risk, essentially cutting too many trees. At least that was the proposition, to cut a lot of trees and making it more difficult for the forest to act as a repository of CO2, which is what the forest is very good at doing if there is enough of it. And so they asked us to make a virtual reality experience that we could use to present to the Finnish parliament and try to convince them to change their policy about forestry. So I don't know how well this is working. Yeah. So I mean, you will be able to, if you go to the NEEEU Facebook, you will be able to see that as well. But yeah, so this is a 360 video capture of the experience. And what we did is that, yeah, we put people inside of the forest. Yeah, somehow it doesn't work very well on desktop, I'm afraid. And we take people into the future so they can see the different ways in which their policy can influence the forest. So, for example, here you see the carbon sink, or representation of how the forest absorbs carbon. And when we go into the future, let me skip ahead a little bit. We show how reducing the amount of trees brings a case where actually the forest is starting to emit more carbon than it is absorbing, which is a very dangerous situation. And we even bring people into a sort of Mad Max crazy dystopian version of the future, which it's not really scientific, but it's very effective. And that was a very interesting project because we got to collaborate with scientists, and we had to think about how to represent the facts. And they are very careful about not saying things that are not true. And so we had to make sure that we could tell the story in a way that would be impactful, but without distorting the scientific reality scientific facts that are known. And that was an interesting balance to find. I think what worked extremely well is like bringing people into the future, and because you can show people number about climate change, and that's not going to change their minds very much. But if you can put people into an environment and show them the reality of climate change, I think this is a very interesting direction. I'm not sure, like, I wouldn't say that this project is 100% of what this potential of the storytelling potential is, but it's showing that there is something there, and that is something we could explore further. I'm very interested in that, like seeing how you can build an understanding, maybe an emotional or intuitive understanding of scientific of some scientific predictions by putting people in the future, and making it in a way it's like data visualization, but not in a traditional sense. It's more like immersion into a scale that you cannot see otherwise. Scales of time that you don't get to experience. Yes.
But this is a virtual forest, or you can use it go outside in a real forest and try to experience this app.
So we put people into a virtual version of the forest, and then we show them the impact of environmental policy on the forest.
Yeah. Okay. So is it like in Finland? You said this was in Finland?
Yes.
In Finland, right? Okay. Was it part of like a certain movement for global warming or something like this? or
Yeah.
in Finland?
Yeah. So there was this open letter that was written in 2017 by a group of Finnish scientists, and they were saying, I mean, I don't read Finnish, and I don't suppose you do either, but I know that what it was saying is, okay, the Finnish government decided that they are going to cut a lot of trees in the next 10, 15 years, and that is a very, very bad decision. We have to make sure that the forest keeps having older trees, not just cutting old trees and planting young trees, because the younger trees are not capturing carbon in the same way that the old ones do. Actually, there's something we show here, like the young trees, they are absorbing and releasing carbon very fast, but not a lot of it. And the older trees are very good at capturing a lot of carbon, but they are slower. And that's what we're showing here. And that's why you need diverse forests. You need younger trees and you need older trees as well. So yeah, that is the virtual forest. Yeah, and we're going a bit over time. I don't know how much longer I should go on this. I think I've shown quite a few projects already. I don't want to take too much of your time. Maybe I can mention, I could skip to talking about Creative Code Berlin a little bit. What do you think, Mohammed? Hello?
Hello? Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, we can extend. We have plenty of time. Do you have some times to continue the presentation?
Yeah, I do, coding? But I don't want to drag on for too long, especially if we want to have time for questions afterwards. You know, we said it would be 20 minutes, and I think I've been talking for 40 maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll show a few more things, and yeah, then we can.
Nahla was here for the last project, the forest one. She was asking how long it took to working on this project.
Well, it's a bit difficult to tell because it was something we did in between other projects, so I can't really tell how much time it took really. But yeah, it was, I would say, yeah, maybe 2 months, something like that. If you put everything together, 2 months, 2 months and a half.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Not a year.
Yeah. She's saying not a year.
No, definitely not. And I mean, I think if we had been more experienced with building landscape and creating VR projects in Unity, I think we could have saved a lot of time even. But you know, that was our first project of this nature, so it took a bit longer.
Okay, yes, that's cool. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, these are some of us at NEEEU. Yeah, I mean, not everybody on this picture is still there, but most of us are still here, and some new faces as well. But we're a fairly new company, so it's always kind of changing. But we're trying to build a core team of people who will stay a bit longer. And we also work with freelancers on some projects depending on the needs of particular projects. And yeah, we also have, so for example, that's something a bit different, but our colleague and co-founder Javier Soto, he's from Spain. He studied at RCA in London, and he designed and produced this really cool product, which is a compass for bikes. and he built the whole thing, designed and built the whole thing by himself, including the hardware, the electronics inside. This was a Kickstarter that got funded, and they are being shipped right now. And that's also, something that we are looking into incorporating in our strategy, which is doing physical products. We don't have yet, like, besides this one, that we're in the process of including in the studio. We don't yet have other products, but that's part of the things that we want to go towards. So being able to build services and apps and experiences, like digital experiences, but also physical products. So being a complete design and like service and product design agency. Oh yeah, and I talked about the Natural History Museum. That is also not a video, but I can show you one. So we worked with the Natural History Museum, and they have this really cool collection of birds from I think it's from the 18th century, if don't quote me on that. But they have a really, really nice collection of birds from, like, really completely left in its like typical classic natural history museum setting. And we worked with them on doing a prototype experience where so yeah, this is Sia, who did most of the work on this project. She was amazing on that. She's a student at RCA as well. And yeah, so it's an augmented reality project where you get to learn some information about the birds. And you saw the prototype before that we did, that's a bit similar. But when you click on each bird, you not only do you see some information, but you also have like some 3D elements. Yeah, the kids really liked it. And yeah, you have, we have a white owl, and so you have this Harry Potter envelope that appears when you look at it. And also an element of it that, well, it's difficult to show in a video, but that was my favorite part of it, is that when you would approach the phone to the bird, you would hear the sound of the bird. So that's actually something that we want to develop further with them. We're talking with the Natural History Museum at the moment to do an extension of this project where you will be walking into the room where all the birds are and hear the songs of the bird, because the museum also has a big archive of bird songs and animal sounds in general recorded. So we want to create a sort of walkable soundscape where you will walk around and hear the different birds as you do so, and then when you approach one, you will be able to have some more information as well. It's actually really interesting. We also talked to the curator of the collection, the birds collection, and she's extremely attached to her collection. She's a scientist, and that's, it's not only a museum, it's also a scientific institution. So every day almost there is somebody from somewhere in the world who comes to do some research on these birds, and they're actually not supposed to, this room is not supposed to be open to the public. So this is a difficult environment to work with. They don't really want people to enter, and so we will have to be very careful when we do that. In this case, we had the installation in front of the room, which you can sort of see in the back, but you're not allowed to enter there. And there's a reason for that, besides the fact that they're afraid that people will break the vitrines with the birds in them, is that the birds are actually poisonous. Not because the birds themselves in nature are poisonous. I mean, there are some poisonous birds, but because the techniques that they used to use to conserve the birds back in the 18th, 19th century is that they would be using arsenic. And well, as you might know, arsenic is not something you want to put in your mouth. And so they're very afraid that people would touch the birds or get arsenic poisoning by being in close proximity to the birds. So yeah, I just hope that we didn't get arsenic poisoning while we were working in there, but we didn't stay very long, so we should be fine. And yeah, so that's the Natural History Museum. And yeah, second to last project, that was a really cool one. We collaborated with a studio in London who's building a game, and it's a connected toy. You play it with an iPad, and this physical toys that you have to pile up these creatures as high as you can go. And they were asked by Apple to make an extension in AR to their game, and because they didn't have the capacity in house to build an AR module, and they didn't have time either. So they asked us to do that, and so we worked on this, and that was the teaser for it. And so we created a 3D world that would be the extension of the actual game. So at some point in the game, you can pick up the tablet, look at this plinth, this little logo on the plinth, and it would pop up a 3D environment that responds also to what's happening in the game. And yeah, and finally, this was actually might have been our first public project using AR, if I remember right, which is a collaboration with an artist and illustrator called Tartaruga Feliz. She has this really fun, playful little character that she draws for kids. And we did a piece where scenes that she made with the character would be represented around some physical objects in the space, and so you would be able to go around and experience the different steps in the story of the character. So the white objects, they are really there, they're physical objects, and all the character and all the sparkles and everything, this is the AR layer on top. And this was also a very, very successful one with the kids. Yeah, so yeah, that was Noi. And yeah, you can, if you want to find more information about the studio, you can go to this address there, noi.io with 3 E's. Well, actually, you can put more E's, less E's. We have them all. So yeah, it all works. And yeah, and there you will find information about all of our projects. Yeah, there's a few that I mentioned and some others. Yeah, and unless you have questions on this, I would say a few words on what we do at Creative Codes Berlin. Any questions so far? Three, two, one.
Yes. Yes. Any questions about the studio, the project? Anybody?
You don't have to, but I wanted to give you the opportunity. So,
Yusuf, yes, Yusuf has a question.
I want to know how you design the UI in the real.
يمكن تقعد عشان اشوفك.
أو كده يعني how you design it and you don't have control on the background in the camera?
I'm not sure I understood which project you're talking about. So how we design the UI?
Yes, يعني choosing the colors and you don't know how the color will be appear on the camera.
I didn't hear properly. Mohammed, can you repeat closer to the mic, maybe?
مش سامع كويس. جرب اقرب كده. انت ايه الفكره من السؤال اساسا؟
اليو اي ورا الكاميرا فانت مش عارف الباك جراوند بتاعت البرنامج ايه. ممكن تبقى اي حاجه.
يعني مش كنترول.
ممكن تسأل سؤال How do you approach the process of creating user interface of some for something that you can't control the environment of? Like you start with having control over the environment.
طب انت would like to ask? يعني سؤال حلو اللي انت سألتيه.
So if I understand, I didn't hear everything, but if I understand, the question is about how do you design something for a space that you don't know what the space is going to be, right?
Yes. He's trying to ask about the idea of how to the environment. You can't control the environment, so how
so I mean that's a very interesting question. So I mean we have to make some assumptions. So it depends. In this case, for example, or in the case of the museum, we know the space. So there's no real issue there because we sort of design the space and the app content at the same time. And it's the same for this one. You know, we even 3D printed the objects, so we know exactly what shape they have. In this case, it's true, it's different with the toy, and this is a problem. I mean, we've done some tests. We assume that people are going to be playing it on the table and there's going to be a bit of space around. But yeah, of course, if you have, if you have a lot of objects on the table and bottles and things like that, then it might fight a little bit with the AR. But in this case, the way that we did it is that you have the world is not like fully. It's not a completely how to say that. It's like you have these little islands, so it sort of plays like here you have these trees that are growing, but they're beyond the edge of the actual world. So we try to blend. It's like you go from like the whole world, like the most dense part of the world that is around the object, where we assume that there's going to be some room, and beyond that you have the sea, and after that you have these sort of little islands and the clouds, and so this is sort of creating this blend between the real and the virtual. But since we don't exactly know what is going to be there, we have to make some guesses. What we did with this one is, because we had this the existing visual language of the game, which is very colorful, as you can see, that was the design. It was already there before we started making the AR, so we could rely on that. And I think for this case it works very well because very bold, bright colors are going to contrast pretty much with any environment you could put it in. So it's going to stand out. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like, depending on the environment, it's going to, there's going to be cases where it breaks. But in the end, it's also, it's also a case of, I think the interaction itself is going to encourage people to, if they want to have, to get a nice image that they can share on Instagram or something, maybe they will want to clear out the table anyway so that it looks nicer. So I think it's not a big issue, but it's a question that we have to ask. There is one solution partially to some of that, is that that augmented reality on the phone. It can detect planes, so it can detect the floor, it can detect tables, it can detect walls. So we can sort of say like, okay, I want to put these kind of things on walls, I want to put these kind of things on tables. We didn't do that in this case, but that's possible.
Yeah. So this idea of detecting like spaces makes it more easier for the experience.
Yeah, it's going to be easier, and Unity has a system called Mars, which is making this easier. We haven't really tested it yet, but I've seen the demos. It's called Project Mars. Augmented reality, yeah. So it makes it easier, for example, to say like, yeah, here, that's exactly what I was talking about. So say like, yeah, you have a table and you have another table and you want to, you know, put some part of the world on tables, and when there's a gap in between, then you automatically build a bridge. So you can have sort of you know, parametric worlds that are going to adapt to your environment. So that's precisely, you know, this, when we talked about spatial transformation, I think that's part of it. Like we're going to see more and more of that, where you're not designing something for the, you know, for one specific screen format, for example, but you have to think more in terms of, okay, what kind of objects are going to be around the person, what kind of environment, and what do I, you know, where am I going to put the things that I want to put in the environment, so that it's not disrupting, you know, and that it can adapt to any kind of environment, whether it's a big room or a small room. We already have these questions in virtual reality, for example, and I think in AR it's going to be the case again. All right. So yeah, let's.
Yeah, it saves times in the process, right?
I'm sorry.
This project, you said it saves times in the process when it detects automatically the spaces and trying to match and to merge things together,
Yeah, I mean, in the project, in the game, in the toy project, we only used. We didn't even detect the table. Actually, we skipped that part, and we used another trick, which is that we detect the symbol on the plinth that is here.
Aha, I see. This okay. So these symbols makes it easier to detect which kind of objects are combined together.
Yeah. So we know that this thing is going to be flat on the table anyway.
Okay.
So we align the whole world based on that, rather than try to detect the table.
I see. Okay.
And we ask the user to go and you know, move the tablet until you can see that in the center, and this is how we align.
Okay, I see. Okay, great.
All right. So
so now it's creative.
Yeah. So for our last bit,
yeah, I have to say a word like before you say about Creative Coding Berlin. Like I remember when I started Creative Coding Cairo, I started talking to Sabrina from Creative Coding Amsterdam, and then Raphaël from Creative Coding Berlin. So to tell them, okay, so I would like to make a meetup here. So how you do this and how it works. So I remember like Raphaël sent me like a text file where he like, that's how it works. I've been doing this for years. So he has been very helpful to help me with some kind of resources that could help me, guide me through my way. So I'm so delighted that for this, and I'm happy that he can share with you more now about what he has been doing for the past years.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and it's a great pleasure to see that it's taking off, and you have all these, like, yeah, to see all these people in the room. So yeah, really, really great to see the ideas spreading. And I mean, we've been doing these meetups. It started as processing code jam in 2013 or late 2012. and then we moved on to call it Creative Code Berlin, because we didn't want to be only about processing. And it's it's a very broad group of people. I wanted to show another slide. Yeah, there it is. So we have these meetups, and we have a quite diverse group of people who come and attend these meetups. People who come more from technology, people who are more like artists, writers, poets, some scientists sometimes. The great thing about Berlin is that it is a very vibrant city with lots of international people coming and going. And so I think we're extremely lucky here to be able to, just put the meetup online, and people will show up no matter what. So there's not much organization necessary, which I totally realize is making us extremely spoiled. And it's very different even in Amsterdam. And from what I hear from you, Mohammed, it's a lot more work to actually make it happen. But yeah, in Berlin, it's we have this. We now, after years of doing it every twice a month, we have this group of regulars who come to almost every meetup, and also always new faces and people who just arrived in Berlin 2 days ago, and it's the first meetup that they go to, and it's really nice to see that they trust us to introduce them to that. And yeah, so we have 2 meetups every month. One of them is the Creative Code Stammtisch. That's a German word for a concept that, well, I guess it exists in some form or another in every country. It's the Stammtisch is the regular table at a cafe or a bar or a Kneipe. That's like a German pub, and it's usually the table where the a group of old people would come every Sunday and talk about everything, and drink beer or drink tea or coffee, and yeah, that's sort of the this rendezvous that you have regularly, and it's always the same people. And of course, in our case, it's not exactly like that, but we try to have the spirit of a very informal gathering where anybody can come and show something and talk about something, propose a topic for conversation. The way that we do it, there is no invited speakers, so we don't have a schedule. We don't post a list of people who are going to be there and talking. What we just do is, we have people coming, and then when people are there, we ask who wants to show something for 10 minutes. We take the names, and that's our program for the evening. So it's completely spontaneous, and it keeps it very fresh also for organizers. So we never know what's going to happen. We never know who is going to be there and present something. And that's what I really like about it. And the other meetup is the Creative Code Jam, and it's more like a hands-on meetup. And in this one, we're trying to get people to get creative together, and it can go in any kind of direction, as you can see. Sometimes people do some hardware hacking, a lot of visual, like generative design, of course. And sometimes you're just poking at a French flag on an iPad with a sausage. I don't even remember why that happened, but it did. So yeah, that's the Creative Code Berlin. I wanted to mention an activity that we do that maybe you want to take on sometime. It's a really fun sort of icebreaker and warm up exercise, what we call the copycat game. And the idea being that you take from one side, you put 2 people on either side of a table, so 2 teams of 2, and each team picks an animation like a geometric animation, like the one you see on the left. And they have to describe it to the people sitting on the other side of the table who cannot see the image. So in this case, it could be, you would say like, okay, so there's a black circle, it's a square format. In the middle of the format, you have this black circle, and actually it's not a black circle, but it's a circle that is made of 25, I don't know, like 16 circles. They're orange and they overlap, and when they overlap, they get black. And it's very difficult, but it's quite fun. And then the people on the other side do the same, and then you have 45 minutes to try to reproduce what you understand in code. So in this case, that was pretty successful. Sometimes it goes wildly off the rails. I have some examples of the most successful ones here. Maybe I should show the failures as well. I mean, there's no failure really, because in the end, it's just about having fun and trying something and having fun at how different the results are from what you thought that was supposed to be. So yeah, that's one that we tend to do at the beginning of every jam. We also have an introduction to creative coding that I used to do, and now a friend who I met at the jam, Steph from the Netherlands, is usually doing the introduction. So we can, if there are a lot of beginners, which more and more often we have, we can bring them on board, and the people who already know more or less what they're doing, well, they can collaborate and try to build something together. That's the ideal scenario, is when we get people to get together, and especially if they come from different disciplines. Like if we have an artist and a programmer come together and build something over the course of a day, then it's the best. And there's here, I just remembered when I saw it here, this video with the plasma ball on the bottom left. This was actually the first time that Anaïsa Franco, who was an artist, she's a contemporary artist, and she was already a quite successful artist when she came to the meetup for the first time with this plasma ball and an idea for a future project that she wanted to do. And she was looking for somebody with expertise in electronics to help her do hack this ball. And it just happened that at this meetup there was a robotics engineer, Aravind, who is coming, if I'm not mistaken, from Sri Lanka, I think, or northern India, and they started collaborating on this project. And just 1 year later, they were traveling to Australia for an installation where he was also helping her with all the electronics. And so, yeah, it was just like a wonderful story of collaboration that started at the meetup and ended up being like much bigger. So yeah, that's really the goal for me. And I can't say that it happens at every meetup. That would be lying, but it does happen that people meet there and then they start collaborations, and these collaborations outgrow the meetup and go live their own life in the world. And that's really, I mean, for me the best is when people meet there and then end up meeting outside of the meetup and doing their own thing. And that's really what I'm looking for, like trying to create bridges between disciplines and getting people who would have never met otherwise to meet and to start working together. Because I feel like technology needs more creativity and more imagination and more craziness, and artists can express themselves in new direction by incorporating technology in their practice. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do there. And that was about it for me. Yeah, a little shout out to the Creative Code Amsterdam people, since also you mentioned them, Mohammed. So yeah, Sabrina, she's great, and she started Creative Code Amsterdam based on knowing what we were doing in Berlin. She actually was never at one of our meetups, but I was at one of the Creative Code Amsterdam ones. So yeah, it's spreading. There used to be one in Linz, and yeah, it's been going a bit all around. I should have put the picture from the Node Festival. That was great, but I don't have it at hand. Yeah, there's a bit of that everywhere in the world now, and yeah, I really hope that that the one in Cairo can grow, and that I will have the chance to visit sometime and hang out with you all. So thank you for listening. This has been me, Raphaël de Courville, live from Berlin.
Thank you.
Yeah, the camera, we still have people over here as well, but the camera can bring everyone. I see the camera can bring everyone. Yes.
Oh, there's even more people.
Yeah.
Hi.
The camera can bring everyone.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, feel free. If you're so tired of hearing me talk, that's also fine.
دايره كهربائيه بتحكم فيها في البرمجه، يعني مثلا لو دايره كهربائيه وعندك عليه ولايات كتير، يعني تاخد مسلسلات الايديت او داون يمين او داون شمال او ممكن تاخد كل عشوائي بس ولا
انت عايز تعرف هي بتستخدم دايره كهربائيه ولا بتستخدم
هو كان بيستخدم دايره كهربائيه لحظه ما بيدوس كده بيحرك كل حاجه.
Remember
رافائيل الاحساس بتاعه او حركه حوالين البوله، هو عمال كده يعمل كل حوالين البوله يطلع ده الاشاره اللي بتطلعها.
انا فهمت. هو رافائيل
الفيجوال بتطلعها ايه؟
Yes, هو there was a question here about the project to show us from the jam. From the jam, the one with the artist who she worked with the electronics and sensors to make this kind of lovely electronics parts, I guess. Yes, somebody was asking, was it like an electronic chip or something? Was it something like Arduino that, or something electronically that controls these kind of visuals?
So I mean, it's been quite a few years now, but I could let me look it up. She was making this piece, Anaïsa Franco. No. Artist. Portfolio. I mean, basically, what she was doing with that piece was she was making a skull which had two faces, one facing in each direction, like the figure in the Greek mythology of Janus, I think. And yeah, it's not on her website, unfortunately. But the idea was that you would touch it, and one side of the face would speak like a positive emotion, and the other side would speak the opposite emotion. So it's like and it's like happiness, and the other side would say sadness, and you have like this skull, and inside the skull there was a plasma ball, and when you touched it, it would start speaking. And she wanted to find a way that you could touch the plasma ball, and that there would be a way to trigger when you touch the plasma ball, and that's what they managed to do. They realized that if you use the capacitive sensor, you could detect the touch event on the plasma ball, which yeah, I was surprised to see that work, but that it did work. So that's what they did.
Okay, that's really amazing. So you mean she used like capacitive sensor over this?
Yeah, and an Arduino. Yeah, I don't know exactly how they ended up doing it, but yeah, I mean, as I remember, they just put the capacitive sensor on the plasma ball, and then when you touch the plasma ball, you could see a spike in the capacitive sensor. Yeah, I can't tell you much more, unfortunately, because that wasn't my project.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, so she turned it like an interface, like touch interface.
Yeah, but from the plasma ball and with an Arduino, I think that was what they used at the time. I don't know what the final project used, but yeah. you could use an Arduino.
Generally, yes. خلاص تمام. هقول لك عليها. حد عنده سؤال تاني؟ هقول لك الإجابة عشان حد عنده سؤال تاني؟ حابب يسأله؟ أي سؤال؟ مفيش حاجة في دماغك؟ يعني حاجة اليوزر اكسبيرينس عن الاستوديو بتاعه أو أي حاجة.
Actually, there is one question.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. I just wanted to know, like, do you guys at NEEEU, do you have a specific goal to reach or a specific industry that you want to crack with AR, or is it more whoever one comes to the idea can come to you guys with a project? How do you chase projects, or how do you choose?
How do we find projects? Is that the question? Sorry, you were cut out.
How do you choose your projects?
Oh, how do we choose? Well, it kind of depends. There's a bit of opportunistic aspect to it, like depending on who we meet, and we start discussing with people. I mean, we haven't really been trying to do a lot of AR projects, but you know, it's like when you're an actor and you play a villain once, then everybody wants to cast you in the same role. So yeah, it's just like, yeah, we played the AR guy in once, and then everybody comes and asks for AR. But yeah, so that's not really necessarily a choice. But what we try, like ideally, when we do have the choice, we try to pick projects where we can spend some time researching and iterating at the beginning, and not necessarily, you know, have to jump into execution mode as straight away, because we feel like the result is better if you have, if you can do the design with your clients and with the users of the final product at the same time. So that is how we try to choose. But yeah, I cannot say that, you know, we're a 2-year-old company, and so, you know, we have also to, you know, try to be pragmatic, and we take the projects that come. We have standards, so we don't take everything, and if it doesn't fit our ethos as a company, or if we think the idea is terrible, we don't take the project. So that's more in this way than like, we also try to actively go and look for potential partners and potential clients that we think would be interesting to collaborate with. But in the end, it really depends, like, who is going to answer and who's going to have, you know, sometimes we're going to talk to someone and they say like, oh yeah, it's really cool what you're doing. We don't have a project right now, but we would love to work with you. And then we never hear about them again. And maybe, you know, a year later, we get a mail that say like, oh, we have something and we need it done for, you know, 2 weeks from now. Can you do it? And we're like, well, yeah, maybe. And you know, that happens as well. So it's difficult to say like how projects happen and how we end up choosing. It's more like if we feel like it fits our, you know, what we do, and we have the ability to make good work out of it, then we take it.
Talk about user experience or research.
Yeah.
So do you have in your company, do you have a user researcher role, or do you just do user experience designer? And then make him do the research.
So in the project where we did like all the AR research, which I can't really talk about much in details, but we do have. So we don't have a user researcher in the team right now, but for that particular project, we brought in like one really experienced user researcher who used to be a project lead at IDEO in London, and because our co-founder Javier used to work there, he also still has a lot of connection with ex-IDEO people. And they're very famous for doing, you know, like design research and human-centered design and all that thing. They came up with the term design thinking, which they don't really use anymore, but that's you know, they made it popular at least. And so, yeah, we have this network of people that we bring depending on the project. And so, yeah, when we need design research, then we bring in the people that we know who are really good at that. Ideally, we would have somebody permanently, but that's not the case right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
سؤال تاني يا باشمهندس، إذا كان هو مهتم بالطبيعة وبتسجيلها والتأثر بيها، يا ترى فكر إن الكريتيف الحرارة ممكن تعمل كريتيف كودينج؟ يعني مثلا لو البرد أو الحر، لو إحنا وصلنا ترمومتر بداية كهربائية، لو نزلت الحرارة الترمومتر ده ممكن يوصل المعلومة ديت للكمبيوتر عن طريق الدائرة الكهربائية ديت، الكمبيوتر يوصل لي معلومات فنية أو أي ماكرو فيجن على الصورة بدرجة تانية، ولو نزلت الحرارة يحصل نفس الفكرة ولا ممكن لا؟ هو بما إنه هو في الطبيعة ودايما بيتفاعل مع الطبيعة، بيخلي إحساسه بالحرارة من حواليه، ما فكرش في
هو بص هو عامة هو الجزء بتاعه اللي كان بيتناول فيه الطبيعة. There is another question Raphaël I'm trying to get it. هو في سؤال اللي هو كان الجزء بتاع الطبيعة، هو كان بيتكلم على إن فكرة اللي هو الجلوبال وورمنج أو فكرة زيادة حرارة الجو عامة، فهم كانوا بيوعوا على الفكرة دي في من خلال عمل اللي هو الاوجمانتد رياليتي. لكن عشان ازاي في الغابات ازاي الحراره بتاعت الشجر اما بيقطعوا الشجر في فنلندا ازاي ده بيخلي كميه الشجر اللي عمره قديم ان هو لكن هو ما كانش هدفه ان هو زي ما انت بتقول يقيس الحراره بتاعه الطبيعه او هي بس هي دي حاجه
زي ما هو عمل حاجه كده.
هي الحراره دي بالظبط هي سنسور بياخد حراره، السنسور يبينه باي طريقه فيجوال، بس هو مش بيعمل كده.
لا انا مش بيعمل كده بقول
لا ممكن يعني
او فكر يعني كده الجزء اللي هو بيشتغل عليه.
هو there is a question here Raphaël was asking, since you started working with the idea of the forest and nature and global warming, this idea, have you ever thought about the idea? Have you ever thought about the idea of using sensors to capture the heat of the spaces in nature, so and try to visualize it as a kind of data visualization? So this idea could be a way to make awareness about global warming, maybe, or the increase in the temperature of nature, something like this. Have you ever thought about it as another approach for awareness? I think there is something wrong with the voice, I think. I think your voice is not a robotic voice. I don't know what's happening. No, it's still weird voice. I don't know why. Yeah, I think there is something with the internet connectivity. No. I think this is, but we can end up with this question since we have an issue with the internet, and I can send you the question later. Maybe because of the voice is very weird. So I guess can we have a photo together? We usually like have a photo with so. Okay, so can you guys gather here around? Yes, gather around the screen. محتاجين ندور على حد يصورنا. ممكن نستغل السيلفي ستيك ونعمل لا لازم. بصوا عملتها عن تجربه لازم اقف هنا خلينا بالسيلف انا كان قصدي كده عشان ممكن نصور حسام ممكن نصور بس معلش تساعدنا نصور بس هو Yes, let's take a selfie. We take it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It really was a pleasure. Like it's so glad to have you. Yes, live from Berlin. Live in Cairo. Yes. Okay, see you soon. Okay, bye.
It's his first time to be live.